So, a few days ago, I discussed on a video some updates that we had from Nintendo during one of their investors' meeting that discussed a little bit of what the rest of the year might look like in terms of their games schedule and stuff that they still plan to release during the year. Nintendo comes out and says, hey, everything is still on track, all of these mysterious games that no one knows about. We still feel like we can get them out on time. We've seen no impact from the health situation. Everything should be great. But earlier this morning, I noticed that there was even another update that came from that investors meeting from Nintendo that actually has to do with Nintendo Directs. Remember those? Man, Nintendo Directs really were pretty great. The general gist of the statement has to do with Nintendo being open to different ways of communicating their video game titles and updates than what has been Nintendo Directs. And again, we've had Nintendo Directs since 2011, you guys. They've been a very, very important part of Nintendo's messaging and marketing and promotion for close to a decade, which is so crazy when you think about it. And of course, in 2020, things have been different, so we haven't really seen Nintendo Directs. We've seen a couple of things focused on Animal Crossing or Smash Brothers. We did get a Nintendo Direct Mini just a couple of months ago, which was nice, even though it wasn't really the big kind of bomb drop that we were waiting for. And while overall Nintendo Directs have turned into something really great that people actually enjoy and look forward to, Nintendo is now stating during this investors meeting that they are considering being open to different or maybe more efficient ways of relaying their messaging and their games information to the fans that might somehow end up being better than what the Nintendo Direct format has been. Now, obviously, like I alluded to, this comes off of the heels of a huge drought in Nintendo Directs, if we want to call it that. With the Nintendo Direct Mini from March aside, it's been now over 300 days since the last true Direct in September of 2019, and I'm sure a lot of you guys have been seeing that number thrown around Twitter and online and stuff a lot the past couple of days, the big 300-day milestone since the last main Nintendo Direct. And it is shocking, it is disappointing. I mean, you know, for all of the different instances this year where I've talked about understanding why Nintendo has slowed things down, I still am a fan, right? And I still love Nintendo Directs, and I miss them. I want to see them more often. I want to see them in the regular sort of, 3-month release schedule that they've been. I mean, I guess not really 3 months, but typically every couple of months, 3, 4, 5 times a year, we've been getting Nintendo Directs. And I do miss that, normal kind of rollout of Nintendo Directs. It was great, and not having them this year definitely makes me sad, even if I understand the reasons why. Reading through this Nintendo Everything article, here is the quick excerpt where they actually reference what Furukawa said about Nintendo Directs. Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa commented on the status of Nintendo Directs during the company's 80th annual general meeting of shareholders. Furukawa stated that these presentations are an especially effective means of conveying new game content and announcement to fans. But if more effective means are made available in the future, Nintendo may consider what is the best way to bring new information to fans. So as you can see, there is no direct quote there from Furukawa or Nintendo about Nintendo Directs, but they do definitely surmise exactly what he was getting at, and they kind of, paraphrase a little bit of what Nintendo is trying to get across when it comes to Nintendo Directs. Now, we may start seeing crazy headlines stating that Nintendo Directs are done, Nintendo says that they're not going to do them anymore and all of this stuff. That would be jumping to a conclusion, and I think it's very important to note exactly what he's saying here. He's not saying that they have officially moved on from Nintendo Directs, and he's not even really saying that there's currently a plan to move on from Nintendo Directs. He's merely stating that, things might be changing and evolving, and the way Nintendo sees things, something better and more effective than Nintendo Directs might make sense, and we're not opposed to being willing to try that. We're not opposed to, if it makes sense to do so, letting go of Nintendo Directs, moving on from them, and never doing them again in favor of this new, better, more effective way of relaying our game information. And obviously, I think right now it might be hard for us to envision exactly what that would be. I mean, Nintendo Directs are so great, right? It's like, what could possibly be better or more effective than Nintendo Directs? Nintendo, what could that be? And we don't know what that is, and maybe Nintendo does know what it is, or maybe they don't know what it is. But most importantly, like I said, they're just saying they're open to the possibility. They're not completely committed and restricted to the end of time to the Nintendo Direct format. They have to be open to evolving and changing, and I completely understand that. And you know what? I'll be real with you guys. I do think that they're planting a very important seed right now to eventually actually do this, to eventually move on from Nintendo Directs. I do feel that they're not currently planning on doing so. Don't get me wrong, don't mince my words. I'm not saying that this is an active plan right now. I'm kind of taking his words at kind of face value here. But I do think that sometime in the next, let's say, year to 5 years, they're understanding that, hey, something is going to come along that makes more sense. Some of these ideas that we're putting in place now will eventually become a more effective way than what Nintendo Directs have been. We see the writing on the wall. We have a vision of our game plan and our direction for the next couple of years. And so we need to maybe start preparing people slowly but surely, obviously starting with their shareholders and not with us, the gamers and the fans. We need to start preparing people for the fact that eventually we might move on from this format. And of course, it's sad to think about, but I have to just be open to the idea, and I have to be okay with it because I'm not a business person. I don't work for Nintendo. I'm going to assume 99.9% of you watching and listening don't work for Nintendo as well. And so we have to kind of just let them conduct their business the way that makes sense. So, you know, if people start trying to tell everyone, hey, Nintendo's giving up on Nintendo Directs, it's confirmed, they're done, we're never going to see another one again, I would recommend not listening to that, paying attention to what's being said, at least right now. Maybe new details shed more light on this, but right now, they're not saying that they're giving up on Nintendo Directs, just merely opening up the possibility for something better. And, you know, maybe that's something where they find a way to give more direct messaging straight through the Nintendo Switch, straight through their hardware, their next home console, the Switch 2, whatever comes after that. Maybe something where they have an online infrastructure network that's all about delivering new information and updates and trailers and videos and interviews that's completely separate from the actual internet kind of format, you know? I mean, obviously, the internet through the Switch is different than the web that we log on to go to websites and to go to YouTube and to go to Twitter to get this information. Maybe they bypass all of that and they are completely committed to giving information only through people who own the hardware that they have for sale at that time. I mean, that's just one random idea I'm spitballing. Don't take that as like an actual thing they're going to do. I'm just trying to envision what could be seen as better and more effective than Nintendo Directs. And knowing Nintendo, that's the kind of thing that I could see them wanting to do. So either way, I find this very fascinating and very curious to see what's going to happen with Nintendo Directs. I mean, honestly, I'm somebody who still thinks we're going to get a Nintendo Direct before 2020 is over. Like, even though it's been slow, even though they've told us there's not a lot of plans for things right now, even though this information comes out here today, where they basically plant the seed for moving on from Nintendo Direct sometime in the future, I still think 2020, even though it's been a weird, slow year, we will still see another Nintendo Direct before December 31st this year. You know, that gives us, we have 6 months to go, right? I think that we're definitely going to see one at some point. I don't know if we're going to hit this 1 year mark in September. It's going to be 365 days since the last Nintendo Direct. Maybe we hit that mark too. I don't really know. But even if we do, that still leaves another 3 months after that to have another Nintendo Direct in 2020 within this calendar year. And I just feel like it's going to happen. So I don't want anyone losing their minds yet. Oh my God, Nintendo Directs are done forever. I just don't see that as the case. So these are my thoughts and opinions. This is the small update on what they said about Nintendo Directs. What do you think about my thoughts? What are your own thoughts and opinions for Directs in the future? Do you think they're going away? Do you think that they're not going to go away? All of that stuff, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I'll catch you next time on another video.